Hello, in this recording I will provide some tips to troubleshoot failed notifications in monitor compensation jobs when you're running the Employee Central History Processor job or sub-job. So typically when you have a variable pay template that's integrated with Employee Central, the great thing about it is that you only click on a few buttons and it retrieves all of the records that are eligible for bonus payout from Employee Central for all employees that are eligible for it. But sometimes when you run the job while preparing for a new cycle, you get these little surprises, and as you can see here, you get these failed on the sub-jobs. The sub-jobs being um, launched. Whenever you click on launching an import employee history from Employee Central, you have the main job here, and then to save time, we configure these sub jobs that will help the job run faster on the entire database. So what can you do when you get a fail notification? First, you can reach out to SAP support, but these jobs are complex, and I'll give you some tips here to save time and things you can do by yourself, actually. So the first thing you want to do is go to your settings here, plan setup, navigate to Employee Central settings. And at the bottom, you have the rules that are defined for your employee history records. So which records are eligible to be retrieved? For example, someone who was terminated during the year, early during in the fiscal year may not be eligible for a payout, for example, based on termination reason. So you can have two here. You can have the filtering rule, and I have another recording in another blog post about this one where I explain what it does. So if you have these two, you want to click on each of them, and then what you're going to do is you're going to redo the mapping for all the fields that are defined in this eligibility rule. Most of the time, you need to also update the eligibility rule from year to year. So it turns out here my rule says is always true. So for me to show you what you want to do, I'm going to set one condition in it, which would be employee status is equal to active. So let's say this is what you have in your system when you click on this job here. Okay, let's say this is what you see when you click on the rule that you have in your environment. So my tip to fix this failed job is to come here and do a take action and reselect the value from the drop-down list for each of the conditions that is defined here. All of the different fields, they can be combined by and or conditions. All of them, all the ones that are defined that have a pick list where you need to select a value from the pick list, you want to reselect the value from the list. The reason for that, and I had this issue last week actually, the reason for that is that it could be um, that one of the system administrators working in Employee Central changed the value in one of the pick lists for the fields that you're using in your eligibility rule, and not knowing that this field was used in your rules in the comp module, they forgot to tell you about it. But the problem is we're still pointing to the previous value that was from the pick list that was deactivated. And so this is why one of your subjobs may be failing. So that would be the first thing to do. The second thing to do, and it's particularly true in a case like this one, where what that was showing at the beginning, where all of the subjobs are failing. In a case like that, it's probably not the first tip I just explained, where to reselect the values in the eligibility rules. When all of the subjobs are failing, it's very likely that in that the background element which is the structure of the employee history that was configured by the implementation consultant in the first place, it's very likely that one of the fields that is here in the structure and the mapping to EC, it has been corrupted, either again because the system administrator may have changed the field ID for the EC source field, or maybe the mapping was pointing to an attribute of the field which has been deleted, for example. this could be one of the two, either the whole field has been removed or just one attribute. But most likely one of these fields has the wrong mapping to EC. And so what I would suggest doing is what you see here. So I'll show you what was before I fixed the failing jobs. So what we had before here was here. We had these mappings here. So job grade was mapped to pay grade external code, employment type to employment type label, country here. So all of these mappings, I removed them all, including the EC category, as you can see, and left them with no selection, no selection, no selection. And the only one I kept, because you have to keep one, otherwise you get an error message when you try to save, was the salary, because it's unlikely that the pay component group has been deleted. So I kept that one, and it worked. I was able to run the employee history. And as you can see here, it gave me completed, and I don't have any fail anymore. And if when I go to edit employee history, I can see all of the users that are eligible here. So with these two tips, you can most of the time troubleshoot these failed notification. There's a third case that is very rare, but I've seen it not long ago. Um, that case is a pretty rare case, but it was a customer that had just integrated SuccessFactors with Fieldglass, which is a software for to manage external contractors. And I took a screenshot of here of a report that we ran, um, and I'll show you how to run that report. But essentially, what can cause these subjobs to fail is when you have a start date of the job info portlet of a user in SuccessFactors that is before when you have a termination date for a user in SuccessFactor in the terminated portlet that is before the start date of the first job info record for that user. And it's pretty rare because uh, when you manually create users, there's something that creates a security against this type of situations. But if you have FTP integrations for data flows, or you have mass imports through CSVs, this situation can happen. And in that case, it's a problem for the compensation module employee history job. And so I'll show you how to create a report like this one in your environment so that you can easily find out if that could be the case too. So you have to run a report on person and employment export. That's the name of the domain in ad hoc reports. So let's get started and go to reporting. And we want to create a new report here of type table, select single domain, and then we want to navigate to that domain I just listed. And be careful because it's called the same than person and employment info. It starts the same way, and there's a couple that start the same way, but we're looking for person and employment export here. And then you just need to select the values that you see here. So the employee ID, first name, last name, start date, end date, and then this one is one that I added in Excel to calculate to make sure that there was to filter on the users that had the date difference. So you can call it date diff or negative date diff, remove styling, save. And then in columns, select employee information, user employee ID. And then actually we can stay on all columns and try to find the ones that are called start date and end date. So we can just, or maybe actually we can browse start date. Yeah, this one, start date. Did a search, it's faster. Start date and end date. Oh, and we wanted actually the first and last name. last name, first name, last name, and then start date, end date. Done, and save, and then run the report. And then you can download the CSV, and in the CSV, you'll just add a date difference column. Sorry, it's called days, the formula. So you want to do end date and then start date and then close. Okay. So that's the number of days between these two dates. Then expand and then just do a filter to find the negative values in here. So we don't have any, which is why we don't have any jobs that's failing in the system. But if you had some, you would see them -1, -4, -5. And and once you have that list, you need to send it to the system administrator so that they can fix it because it shouldn't be like this. And then once they confirm it's fixed, then you can run your report again and make sure you don't see any date diff again, and then relaunch your employee history job. I hope this was useful, and let me know if you have any questions, as this is a pretty complex topic. Thank you.